The first time I saw her, I was carrying a box of old clothes to the trash. It was a late Sunday evening, quiet except for the soft hum of the streetlights. I remember the faint chill in the air and the smell of rain that hadn't fallen yet. She was standing on her porch, tall, elegant, a silhouette framed by the golden light from her window. I didn't know then that she would change everything about how I saw myself. She smiled when our eyes met, not the polite kind of smile, but the kind that makes you feel like someone already knows your secrets. I froze, my box still in my arms. Maybe she noticed how awkward I looked because her lips curved slightly. "Moving in?" she asked. Yeah," I stammered, adjusting my grip on the box. "Just unpacking. Trying to get rid of old stuff." Her eyes flicked toward the box, and for a split second, I swear I saw curiosity, the kind that studies you, not just sees you. "Old stuff," she repeated. "Funny how we always throw away what used to define us." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded, feeling strangely exposed. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said finally. "I'm Victoria. I live next door." Her voice lingered long after I went back inside. There was something in the way she spoke, steady, knowing, like she wasn't just talking about moving boxes. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to her poise, her confidence, and the way her gaze seemed to cut right through me. It wasn't attraction, exactly. It was more like recognition. The next morning, I found a small envelope slid under my door. No name, no address, just a white card with 6 words written in precise handwriting. "You looked uncomfortable in your own skin." My heart jumped. I looked toward the window, half expecting to see her watching from across the fence, but there was no one. I didn't understand how she could see so much in a single glance. I hadn't told anyone about the thoughts I'd been wrestling with, the quiet longing I'd buried for years. I had told myself it was just curiosity, that it didn't mean anything. But her words cracked something open. That evening, I went to her door. My hands shook as I knocked. She opened it almost immediately, as if she'd been expecting me. "I got your note," I said quietly. Her expression softened. "Good," she said. "Come in." Inside, her home smelled of jasmine and something faintly metallic, perfume and polish, maybe. The lights were low, warm, almost theatrical. She gestured for me to sit. "You've been carrying a weight," she said simply, "and you don't know how to name it." I blinked, my throat tightening. "I don't know what you mean." Her smile deepened just enough to be disarming. "You do," she said. "You just don't want to admit it. But that's all right. Some truths need to be drawn out, gently." There was something hypnotic about her tone, the way her words flowed with quiet certainty. "Why me?" I finally asked. "Because," she said, walking around me slowly, "you looked like someone ready to change, but too afraid to begin." Her heels clicked softly against the floor as she stopped behind me. "I help people like you, people who need to confront what they've been hiding. It takes 7 days. Nothing more, nothing less." I turned slightly confused. 7 days for what? Her reflection met mine in the mirror across the room. Her eyes were calm, unreadable. "To stop pretending," she said, "and start becoming." For a long moment, we just stared at each other through that reflection, me, uncertain and restless, her, steady and knowing. And when she finally smiled again, I realized that I had already said yes, even without words. I don't know what I expected when I agreed to return the next day. Maybe a conversation, maybe an apology for how strange her offer had sounded. But when I stood in front of her door again, it was like stepping into a different version of reality, quieter, heavier, charged with something I couldn't quite name. The door opened before I could knock. Victoria stood there, dressed in a long black silk robe, her hair tied back. She didn't speak. She only stepped aside, her eyes meeting mine, waiting for me to enter. The room was softly lit, the same warm glow as before, but today there was a sense of arrangement, deliberate, intentional. A mirror had been moved to the center of the room, tall and full-length, draped with a sheer cloth. On the table beside it lay a neatly folded outfit, though I couldn't tell what it was yet. "Sit," she said gently, motioning toward the chair across from the mirror. My heartbeat thudded against my ribs as I obeyed. Victoria circled around me, her tone calm but exact. "Before we begin," she said, "you need to understand one thing. This isn't about humiliation. It's about honesty. The kind of honesty most people never allow themselves to reach." Her words struck something deep. I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, that I wasn't hiding anything, but I couldn't. Because even as I thought it, I knew it wasn't true. She walked to the table, picking up the folded fabric. When she unfolded it, I froze. It was a soft lavender dress, delicate, simple, but unmistakably feminine. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked quietly. Her gaze was steady. "Because sometimes the only way to confront the truth is to wear it." I laughed nervously, trying to make light of it. "You can't be serious." "I am," she said, her tone gentle but leaving no room for argument. "You came here because part of you wants to stop fighting yourself. You've built a wall of fear around something that isn't wrong, just misunderstood." My throat tightened. "I'm not," I started, but the words broke halfway. "I'm not like that." She took a step closer, her eyes locking on mine. "Then why do you look at the dress like it's a doorway?" The silence between us stretched, raw and uncomfortable. I didn't have an answer. I didn't even have air in my lungs. Victoria placed the dress in my hands, not forcing it, not demanding, just letting it rest there, soft and impossibly light. "You don't have to wear it yet," she said quietly. "Just hold it. Feel what it means to stop running for one moment." The fabric was cool against my skin. My fingers trembled as I traced the edge of the sleeve. "It's just a piece of clothing," I said weakly, more to myself than to her. She smiled faintly. "And yet you're shaking." I looked up, meeting her eyes. There was no judgment there, only patience, and something like compassion wrapped in steel. "This is day one," she said softly. "Not about what you wear, but what you feel. The discipline isn't about obedience. It's about truth, about staying present with who you are, even when it terrifies you." She turned and walked toward the window, letting the silence fill the space again. Outside, the wind was rising, brushing the curtains like whispers. "When you're ready," she said, "you'll know. And that's when we'll begin day two." I sat there for what felt like forever after she left the room. The dress lay across my lap like a confession. And for the first time in my life, I stopped trying to run away from the question that had haunted me for years. Who was I when I wasn't pretending to be someone else? I don't know what I expected when I agreed to return the next day. Maybe a conversation, maybe an apology for how strange her offer had sounded. But when I stood in front of her door again, it was like stepping into a different version of reality, quieter, heavier, charged with something I couldn't quite name. The door opened before I could knock. Victoria stood there, dressed in a long black silk robe, her hair tied back. She didn't speak. She only stepped aside, her eyes meeting mine, waiting for me to enter. The room was softly lit, the same warm glow as before, but today there was a sense of arrangement, deliberate, intentional. A mirror had been moved to the center of the room, tall and full-length, draped with a sheer cloth. On the table beside it lay a neatly folded outfit, though I couldn't tell what it was yet. "Sit," she said gently, motioning toward the chair across from the mirror. My heartbeat thudded against my ribs as I obeyed. Victoria circled around me, her tone calm but exact. "Before we begin," she said, "you need to understand one thing. This isn't about humiliation. It's about honesty. The kind of honesty most people never allow themselves to reach." Her words struck something deep. I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, that I wasn't hiding anything, but I couldn't. Because even as I thought it, I knew it wasn't true. She walked to the table, picking up the folded fabric. When she unfolded it, I froze. It was a soft lavender dress, delicate, simple, but unmistakably feminine. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked quietly. Her gaze was steady. "Because sometimes the only way to confront the truth is to wear it." I laughed nervously, trying to make light of it. "You can't be serious." "I am," she said, her tone gentle but leaving no room for argument. You came here because part of you wants to stop fighting yourself. You've built a wall of fear around something that isn't wrong, just misunderstood. My throat tightened. I'm not, I started, but the words broke halfway. I'm not like that. She took a step closer, her eyes locking on mine. Then, why do you look at the dress like it's a doorway? The silence between us stretched, raw and uncomfortable. I didn't have an answer. I didn't even have air in my lungs. Victoria placed the dress in my hands, not forcing it, not demanding, just letting it rest there, soft and impossibly light. You don't have to wear it yet, she said quietly. Just hold it. Feel what it means to stop running for one moment. The fabric was cool against my skin. My fingers trembled as I traced the edge of the sleeve. It's just a piece of clothing, I said weakly, more to myself than to her. She smiled faintly. And yet you're shaking. I looked up, meeting her eyes. There was no judgment there, only patience, and something like compassion wrapped in steel. This is day one, she said softly. Not about what you wear, but what you feel. The discipline isn't about obedience. It's about truth, about staying present with who you are, even when it terrifies you. She turned and walked toward the window, letting the silence fill the space again. Outside, the wind was rising, brushing the curtains like whispers. When you're ready, she said, you'll know. And that's when we'll begin day two. I sat there for what felt like forever after she left the room. The dress lay across my lap like a confession. And for the first time in my life, I stopped trying to run away from the question that had haunted me for years. Who was I when I wasn't pretending to be someone else? The third morning came wrapped in fog, soft and pale, as though the world was caught between dreams and waking. I stood by the window, staring at the house next door. Her curtains were open, but she was nowhere in sight. And yet, somehow, I felt her presence, the way you feel thunder before you hear it. I told myself I wouldn't go today, that I needed a break from her questions, from the way she made me feel like I was constantly being peeled open. But when noon came, I found myself standing on her porch again, fingers hesitating above the doorbell. The door opened before I could press it. She was waiting, dressed in a deep red blouse and black skirt, her eyes bright, focused. Right on time, she said. I didn't tell you I was coming, I murmured. She smiled faintly. I didn't need you to. Inside, the air was warm and fragrant, carrying the faint scent of sandalwood. The mirror still stood in the same place, uncovered now, waiting like a witness. But something new was on the table today, a small wooden box, open just enough to reveal an array of colors, powders, brushes, and delicate little bottles. Sit, Victoria said softly, and I did. Today, she continued, is about expression. How we decorate ourselves says less about vanity and more about belonging. But you've never allowed yourself to belong to your reflection, have you? I swallowed hard. I don't think I've ever really looked at it that way. Exactly, she said, her tone gentle but deliberate. You've spent your life editing yourself. But what happens when you stop censoring? She picked up a brush, holding it between her fingers like a conductor might hold a baton. I'll guide you today, but you'll do the work. I don't know how, I admitted. Her eyes softened. That's what everyone says before they start. Under her quiet instruction, I dipped the brush into a soft, muted tone and followed her lead. My hands were unsure, trembling slightly, but she didn't correct me. She just watched, patient, almost reverent, as though the act itself mattered more than perfection. Don't look for control, she said after a while. Look for truth. Control comes from fear. Truth comes from surrender. The words echoed in me long after she spoke them. When I finally looked up, my reflection had changed, subtly, delicately. My features hadn't transformed, not really, but something in my expression had. I looked calmer. Interesting, Victoria murmured, her gaze studying the mirror. You softened your jawline with the brush strokes without realizing. Your hand knows what your heart hasn't admitted yet. A chill ran through me. What do you mean? She smiled faintly. That you're beginning to see what I saw the first time you stepped through my door. I turned back to the mirror, my pulse racing. It wasn't just makeup. It was revelation, quiet, simple, terrifying. "I don't know who I am anymore," I whispered. Victoria stepped closer, her reflection aligning with mine. "That's good," she said, "because the person you're about to meet deserves space to breathe." I stared at myself for a long time, at the soft traces of color on my face, the subtle transformation that wasn't about disguise, but honesty. Then she handed me the lavender dress again, the same one from the first day. My heart pounded, but this time, I didn't pull away. Her tone was calm, almost ceremonial. "You don't have to wear it because I say so," she said. "You wear it because you choose to face yourself without fear." I hesitated only for a moment. Then I nodded. She turned around as I changed, giving me privacy. The fabric slid against my skin, lighter than I remembered, almost like it was breathing with me. When I looked back at the mirror, something inside me cracked open. I didn't see disguise anymore. I saw its possibility. Victoria turned slowly, her eyes meeting mine through the reflection. "There," she said softly. "Do you feel that? The silence inside you. That's not emptiness. That's peace." I didn't speak. I couldn't. The tears came quietly, not from sadness, but from the strange relief of not pretending. Victoria didn't move closer, didn't comfort me. She just watched, proud, calm, patient. "Day 3 is complete," she said. "Tomorrow will be harder. You'll face the world outside this mirror." I looked at her, startled. "Outside?" "Yes," she said. "Transformation means nothing if it can't survive the sunlight." The words filled the room like a prophecy. And in that moment I realized the next step wouldn't just test who I wanted to be. It would test whether I had the courage to let anyone else see her. Morning arrived with a brightness that felt harsher than usual, the sun spilling through my blinds like it was trying to force me awake before I was ready. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the lavender dress hanging neatly on the chair. Yesterday's reflection still lingered in my mind, soft, delicate, fragile, and yet it had awakened something dangerous in me. I was afraid. Not of Victoria, not exactly, but of the person I glimpsed in the mirror. The one who wasn't pretending, the one who wasn't hiding. She felt too real to exist in my ordinary world. The walk to her house was quiet, my sneakers scuffing softly against the pavement. Every shadow seemed sharper, every gust of wind colder. I arrived to find her standing at the door, already aware I would come, as if the day itself had been planned around my hesitation. "Good morning," she said, her voice calm, firm, inviting. "Today is day 4. And today, you'll face the world, starting with this street." She gestured toward the window behind her. Beyond the glass, neighbors were moving about, ordinary lives unfolding without awareness. My chest tightened at the thought. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for them to see me, not yet. "You'll wear the dress," she continued, "and step outside. Not for attention. Not for approval. For yourself." My knees wobbled. "I can't," I whispered. "People will stare. They'll judge." Victoria smiled softly. "Then let them. This isn't about them. It's about you claiming the space you've avoided all your life." I stared at her, trembling. My reflection in the glass door caught my eye. That person in the mirror, tentative, raw, unashamed, looked back at me with a daring I didn't know I could feel. Slowly, almost ritualistically, I changed into the lavender dress. The fabric felt alive against my skin, brushing softly over my arms, my chest, my legs. It wasn't just clothing. It was armor made of truth, soft and undeniable. Victoria watched without comment, giving me the dignity of making the choice myself. When I finally stepped toward the door, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might be heard across the street, she nodded. "Good," she said. "Step outside." The door creaked under my hand. The air hit me, cooler than the room, sharper, real. And then I was outside. Neighbors passed by. Some glanced, some didn't. No one shouted. No one laughed. My hands shook at first, gripping the skirt, my eyes fixed on the cracks in the pavement. But each step grew steadier, each breath more deliberate. Victoria walked beside me, calm and steady, letting me take the lead. "Look at yourself," she said softly. "Not at them. Look at who you are when no one can decide for you." I raised my eyes slowly. My reflection in the shop windows, faint, distorted, yet undeniable, stared back at me. The lavender dress, the soft lines, the subtle blush of my skin. It wasn't costume. It was me. And for the first time, I believed I had the right to exist outside my own hiding. Victoria's hand brushed against mine, barely noticeable. "Courage isn't loud," she said. "It's quiet, persistent. And you're learning it." We returned inside after only a few minutes, but the world outside felt different. Not changed, exactly, but altered in how I perceived it. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was visible, vulnerable, alive. Victoria smiled as I sat down, breathing heavily. "Day 4 is about exposure," she said, "but also about acknowledgement. You've survived the first taste of it. That's significant." I nodded, chest tight, mind racing. She didn't need to say more. I knew that tomorrow would demand even more, stepping deeper into the truth, beyond comfort, beyond shadows. And yet, despite the fear, despite the trembling, I felt a thrill I hadn't felt in years. The world was waiting. And maybe, just maybe, I woke before dawn. The world outside still wrapped in shadows and silence. Sleep had been shallow, fractured with dreams of mirrors and eyes I didn't recognize, yet somehow felt familiar. My hands moved automatically toward the lavender dress, now folded neatly on the chair like a promise waiting to be kept. By the time I reached her door, my stomach twisted in knots of anticipation and dread. Victoria opened the door immediately, her presence calm, magnetic, as though she had already felt my hesitation and chosen to erase it. "Good morning," she said softly. "Day 5 begins with honesty. Today, you'll confront the parts of yourself that hide even from you." I hesitated, trying to process her words. "Confront myself?" "Yes," she said, her gaze unflinching. "The parts you tuck away, the thoughts you deny, the reflection you avoid." Inside, the mirror waited, tall and clear, catching the early light from the window. On the table beside it lay a new set of items, a small brush, a compact, and a delicate ribbon. Victoria handed me the ribbon. "Today," she said, "is about adornment." But adornment isn't decoration. It's recognition. Recognition of who you are becoming. I studied the ribbon, hesitant to touch it. It seemed insignificant, just a piece of fabric, yet it carried weight. My fingers brushed it lightly, feeling a subtle thrill run up my arm. "You don't have to rush," Victoria said. "But when you're ready, place it in a way that feels truthful." I stared at myself in the mirror, the lavender dress soft against my skin, the faint blush of confidence settling in my chest. Slowly, deliberately, I tied the ribbon in my hair. It wasn't perfect, uneven strands escaped, a tiny knot off-center, but it was mine. Victoria's eyes softened as she watched me. "Perfection is irrelevant," she said. "Truth is what matters. And this," she gestured to the ribbon, "is your acknowledgement of it." For the first time, I saw myself differently. Not just the outward transformation, though the dress and ribbon softened my frame, highlighted my curves, framed my face, but the inward one. The hesitation in my eyes was gone, replaced by quiet defiance. The defiance of someone who dared to face themselves without apology. "You're ready," she said quietly, stepping back. "Not for the world, yet, but for the truth you've been hiding." Her words settled in my chest like a slow fire. I wanted to argue, to protest, to retreat, but something in me whispered yes, a yes I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. We spent the rest of the morning in silence, her presence like a gentle tide guiding me towards something I couldn't yet name. By the time I left, the sky was bright and clear. The street outside looked ordinary, but I didn't. I carried myself differently, aware of every line, every movement, every heartbeat. Victoria's parting words lingered in the air. "Tomorrow, you'll step further. The discipline is not just about what you wear, but what you claim. The world will watch. and you will see how much of yourself you are willing to show. I walked home slowly, the ribbon fluttering softly against my hair. The wind whispered in my ears like a challenge. I wasn't scared anymore. Not entirely. I was becoming someone I had never allowed myself to be. The next morning felt heavier than the rest. The sun was bright, sharp, almost daring me to face the day. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the lavender dress once more, the ribbon in my hair already tied from the previous day. My reflection in the mirror caught my eye, confident, yes, but trembling underneath. I knew today would be different. When I arrived at Victoria's house, she was already waiting, standing in the doorway like a sentinel. "Day 6, she said softly. "Today, the world becomes part of your reflection." I froze. The world. She didn't smile, didn't explain. She just gestured toward the door. "Step outside." I swallowed hard. My chest was tight. The street looked ordinary. Neighbors walking dogs, cars driving past, nothing that should have mattered. And yet, the thought of leaving the threshold filled me with terror. Victoria's eyes softened, but her tone was unwavering. "This isn't about them noticing. It's about you noticing yourself. Let the reflection carry you, not the fear." I took a step, then another. Each one was deliberate, slow, terrifying. The fabric of the lavender dress floated lightly against my legs, the ribbon tugging gently at my hair. My heartbeat thundered so loudly I thought it might announce me to the entire street. A neighbor glanced my way. My stomach nodded. But she didn't smile. She didn't judge. She simply passed, absorbed in her own world. Victoria's hand brushed against mine as we walked. "See," she whispered. "The world doesn't define you. You define yourself." I kept moving, step by trembling step. Each time I looked into a shop window, my reflection stared back at me, unflinching. It wasn't just a reflection anymore. It was me. Real. Whole. Alive. By the time we returned inside, I was breathless, trembling, yet exhilarated. Victoria didn't speak immediately. She simply watched as I sank into the chair, my hands gripping the skirt, my eyes fixed on the mirror. "You've done more today than most people ever do," she said finally. "Exposure isn't bravery for applause. It's bravery for recognition. You recognized yourself in public." I nodded, my throat tight. I think I saw myself," I whispered. Her smile was soft, proud. "Not just think. You did. And that's the first step toward freedom." For the first time, I realized the transformation wasn't just about dress, ribbon, or reflection. It was about acceptance, owning every tremor, every doubt, every tiny heartbeat of fear and joy. Victoria walked me to the door as I left. "Tomorrow," she said, "is the final day. You'll confront not just the reflection, but the decision. The choice to continue, or the choice to hide again. Be ready." I walked home slowly, the wind carrying the scent of the early morning. Every step felt lighter, yet heavier with anticipation. I wasn't pretending anymore. And I knew tomorrow would ask everything of me. The morning of day 7 arrived with a strange stillness, as if the world itself was holding its breath. I sat on my bed, the lavender dress neatly folded beside me, the ribbon already in my hair. My hands trembled, not from fear, but anticipation. Today would decide everything. When I reached Victoria's doorstep, she didn't greet me as usual. She simply opened the door and gestured for me to enter. Inside, the room felt different. The mirror glinted in the soft light, a quiet stage set for revelation. "Today," Victoria said softly, "is not about garments, ribbons, or reflections. It's about ownership. Who are you willing to become?" I swallowed hard. I don't know." "That's all right," she said. "Most people don't. But you've spent 6 days peeling back layers, discovering pieces of yourself hidden for years. Today, we decide what stays and what goes." She handed me the lavender dress. My fingers brushed the fabric, feeling the familiar softness, the comforting weight of possibility. "Wear it," she said simply. "Not for me, not for the street, but for yourself. And when you look in the mirror, don't search for approval. Search for truth. I stepped into the dress, my breath catching as the fabric slid over my skin. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't just see reflection, I saw presence. I saw someone who had trembled, hesitated, and feared, and yet had walked through it all. Victoria's circled behind me, her gaze gentle but unwavering. The final lesson, she whispered, is acceptance. The reflection isn't your enemy. It's the truest part of you. I turned slightly, meeting my eyes in the glass. For a moment, I didn't recognize the person looking back. Delicate features softened by the dress, ribbon in my hair, eyes bright with courage I hadn't known I possessed. I'm me, I said quietly. Yes, she said. And that is enough. More than enough. Tears blurred my vision. I had expected fear, anxiety, embarrassment, but none of it came. Instead, there was relief, lightness, a quiet triumph that had nothing to do with anyone else's gaze. Victoria stepped aside, her expression serene. The choice is yours now. You can step back into hiding, or you can step forward and carry this truth into the world. I took a deep breath. The street beyond the window looked ordinary, the neighbors going about their lives, oblivious to the inner revolution that had just unfolded. But I knew I wasn't ordinary. I wasn't pretending. I stepped closer to the window and watched my reflection blend with the sunlight. For the first time, I didn't flinch. I didn't shrink. I simply existed, whole, unashamed, undeniably myself. Victoria's hand brushed my shoulder lightly. 7 days, she said softly. And now, every day is yours. I smiled, a trembling, radiant smile. For the first time in my life, I felt complete. Not perfect, not flawless, but real. And that was more than enough. The morning after day 7 felt different, quieter, yet somehow louder inside me. The world hadn't changed, not really, but everything about me had shifted. I woke before the sun. The room bathed in soft golden light. The lavender dress hung on the chair, waiting, but I didn't need to wear it this time. Not because it wasn't part of me, but because the transformation had already begun deeper than fabric and ribbons. I stared at the mirror, taking in every line of my face, every curve of my body, every detail that I had once tried to hide. My reflection didn't scare me anymore. It welcomed me, as if saying, "You finally see yourself, and that's enough." Victoria's door opened gently that morning, and she appeared without ceremony, dressed in soft neutral tones. She didn't speak at first, simply observing me as though she were measuring the distance I had traveled in just a week. "You've changed," she said finally, her voice calm but layered with awe. "Not in ways others will notice immediately. Not just in what's visible, but in the way you hold yourself, the way you breathe, the way your eyes meet the world. That's the real transformation." I swallowed hard. "It feels overwhelming," I admitted. "Like I've been carrying a weight my whole life and suddenly set it down." Her eyes softened. "Yes. That weight was fear, judgment, and habit. You didn't notice it until you stepped away from it. And now—" I looked down at my hands, trembling slightly. "Now, I feel light, but fragile." "Fragility is honesty," she said. "It's proof you've opened yourself to yourself. Strength without fragility is just pretense." She gestured toward the mirror. "Look closely." I turned. My reflection stared back, pale in the morning light, hair slightly tousled, eyes alive with an emotion I didn't have words for. It wasn't perfection, but it was real. My lips curved into a hesitant smile. Victoria approached, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Yesterday was about claiming your reflection publicly. Today is about claiming it internally. Without mirrors, without ribbons, without validation. Just you." We sat in silence. I could hear the faint rustle of her curtains, the soft ticking of a clock, my own heartbeat, each sound amplified in the stillness. And yet, for the first time, the silence didn't scare me. It felt like space, room to breathe, room to think, room to simply exist. "Tell me," she said softly, breaking the quiet. What do you see when you imagine tomorrow? I hesitated, my thoughts tangled.
I
don't know, I whispered. I feel like I've been hiding for so long that I don't know how to exist without hiding anymore. Victoria nodded, her gaze steady. That's exactly it. Transformation is not finishing. It's learning how to carry yourself when the world expects you to shrink, to cover, to obey. The next step is entirely yours. Her words settled in me like a tide, slow but powerful. I realized I didn't need permission, affirmation, or guidance anymore. I had learned to look, to listen, to feel, and now I had to walk forward alone, carrying the truth I had discovered. You've faced reflection, exposure, and honesty, she continued. But there's one final lesson. One last step before you claim yourself fully. I felt my pulse quicken. What is it? Victoria didn't answer immediately. She simply reached into the drawer and pulled out a small, handheld mirror, holding it up at my level. I stared into it, not at the surface, not at the familiar face, but at the space behind my eyes, the quiet depth I had finally allowed to breathe. This, she said, her voice reverent, is where the truth lives. Not in ribbons, not in dresses, not in anyone else's gaze. In here. You must carry this reflection wherever you go, for however long you live. The world will challenge it, try to distort it, try to hide it again. But the strength you've found, it will guide you. I took the mirror, my hand steady now, feeling its weight not as an object, but as a symbol. The symbol of my courage, my acceptance, my becoming. Tears welled in my eyes, unbidden but welcome. I had never cried like this before. Not from fear, not from shame, not from sadness, but from the release of years of hiding, the unraveling of doubt, and the quiet arrival of self-recognition. Victoria's hand lingered lightly on mine. Tomorrow, she said softly, you'll step into the world fully. Not partially, not cautiously. And when you do, you will know that you are no longer the person you were last week. I nodded, gripping the mirror tightly. The city outside was waking, ordinary in its rush, its indifference. But I felt extraordinary.
alive, real.
And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the reflection, or of myself, or of the world waiting beyond. The seventh morning broke, like a promise. Sunlight spilled into my room, golden and insistent, catching every line, every shadow, every detail of the lavender dress folded neatly on my chair. But this time, I didn't need the dress to recognize myself. I had seen her, me, in ways I hadn't dared to imagine before. I took a deep breath and stepped outside. The street was quiet, ordinary, neighbors going about their routines, cars rolling lazily down the road, a dog barking somewhere distant. And yet, to me, everything looked new, sharper, more vibrant. The world hadn't changed. I had. Victoria stood at her door, poised, serene, as if she had been expecting this moment for years rather than 7 days. She gave me a small nod, encouragement, not instruction. I didn't need her to lead anymore. I knew where I was going. Each step toward her door felt like a triumph. Not because anyone could see me, most didn't, but because I was finally stepping into my own skin without shame, hesitation, or apology. My reflection caught in the shop windows as I passed, unflinching, unedited. The person staring back wasn't a disguise. She wasn't borrowed. She was me.
Whole, alive, free.
Inside, the familiar room felt sacred, the mirror glinting in the morning light, the faint scent of sandalwood and jasmine mingling in the air, the silence thick with anticipation. Victoria gestured toward the chair. "Sit," she said softly. Not to instruct, not to guide, just to reflect. I obeyed. My heart still raced, but not from fear. From certainty. From clarity. "Over the past 7 days," she began, her voice calm but powerful, "you've confronted hesitation, uncertainty, fear, and doubt. You've explored exposure, reflection, adornment, and truth. You've learned that courage isn't loud. It's quiet persistence, and that persistence lives within you now." I nodded, my hands folded in my lap. I understand. I think I do. Her eyes softened, but they held their sharp focus. It's not about understanding in words. It's about living it. The person you were afraid to become isn't gone. She's here, fully. And the choice to embrace her is yours. I swallowed hard. The tension, the anticipation, the weight of 7 days pressed on me, yet I felt stronger than ever. The lavender dress hung beside me, beautiful, delicate, a symbol of the journey, but not the destination. My reflection in the mirror didn't need it. I was complete without adornment. I met her gaze. "I'm ready," I said, voice trembling with release and triumph. "Ready to be me." Victoria smiled, a quiet, approving smile, then stepped forward. I rose, legs shaking slightly, but my mind clear. I walked to the mirror and faced her reflection fully, no hesitation, no concealment. I touched the glass lightly, feeling the texture, the cold certainty, the undeniable presence staring back. "You've seen fear," she said softly. "You've seen doubt. You've seen the version of yourself hiding in shadows. But this version, this one, she is real. She exists. And she will not be denied." A wave of emotions swept over me, and I let it. Tears came freely, unrestrained, not from sadness but from release, recognition, and the exhilaration of finally existing without compromise. I smiled through them, trembling but radiant. Victoria stepped aside, giving me space. "The final lesson," she said, "is living it. Each day from now, the discipline continues, not enforced by me, but chosen by you. You are accountable to yourself, to no one else." I nodded, gripping my hands together to steady myself. "I will," I whispered. The world outside awaited, bright, ordinary, unaware, but I had changed. The reflection, the ribbon, the dress, the 7 days of careful guidance, and the patient discipline had led me here. I was no longer hiding. I was not fragmented. I was whole. I stepped away from the mirror and toward the door, toward the street, toward life. The lavender dress in my hands now felt like a companion, not armor. My reflection followed me in every surface, not mocking, not demanding, but affirming. Victoria watched, silent and serene, as I stepped into the sunlight. The wind brushed my face. The ordinary hum of the world filled my ears. And for the first time, I didn't shrink. I didn't falter. I simply existed, radiant, fearless, and fully me. 7 days had ended. But life, my life, reclaimed and transformed, was just beginning. And I walked forward, finally unafraid of who I was.